what is happening.
Broadcasting live from the Zimmer Communications World Headquarters.
Great news for the American people.
This is Wake Up Mid-Missouri with Branden Rathert, featuring Stephanie Bell, News Director Brian Houseworth, John Marsh, and Hannah, the producer.
This is why we listen to you. Get ready, pal.
And now, here's your host, Branden Rathert.
Mr. President, will you be taking part in the Easter egg rolls after 2024?
Well, I plan on at least 3 or 4 more Easter egg rolls.
At least 3 or 4 more?
Maybe 5.
Maybe 5?
maybe 6.
So
what the hell?
Are you saying that you would be taking part in our upcoming election in 2024?
Well, I'll either roll an egg or being the guy who's pushing them out.
Come on.
Joe Biden wants to be
the guy who's pushing them out, like laying eggs, like a chicken.
Like a chicken, man. Here, kids. God.
But did he also insinuate he's going to be running again?
Yeah. Well, and here's one of the things that I find humorous, John, is always, is he going to run? Is he going to? And he hasn't announced. I believe this is, he said multiple times, I plan on it. I'm just not ready to announce. It's like when an athlete comes out. I'm going to announce that I'm going to retire, but I'm going to do it Monday.
I'm going to go all lawyer on you here because once you officially announce, there are all these specific requirements and campaign finance things and all these other things. So I'm sure there are tons of people in the background like, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it, because it triggers a bunch of other things. So, I mean, there are reasons why. There are other people in the field, in the 2024 field, who have said, who have not announced as well. And people, even when Trump came out really early, they're like, why would you do this? Everyone waits because complying with FEC rules and everything tends to be pretty onerous. Trump had other reasons for why he might announce early. But there are a lot of people still being coy when asked whether they're announcing or not.
But if he doesn't run for president,
I'll either roll an egg or being the guy who's pushing them out. Come on.
Does anybody, Hannah, can you offer up any kind of explanation as to potentially what the president of the United States means there?
I mean, he already lays an egg every time he opens his mouth.
Oh, gosh. Houseworth, any explanation?
The thing is, and I know for our core audience, and yeah, I don't have a great explanation, but he has a base. He's going to be I'll tell you, Branden, he's going to be tough to beat. There are, if you look at progressive Twitter, they think he's fantastic, and the reality is, whoever the nominee is going to be on the Republican side, you figure California, New York. You probably could argue a number of other states, but those persons have those candidate would intend to be Biden, I would think. They would already have several states there that the Republicans would face an uphill battle. By the way, those states used to be Republican.
Not a big fan of Chris Christie, but I agree with him here regarding the 2024 race.
Who say they think he deserves to be reelected in the latest poll.
But you still think he beats Donald Trump in a general election?
I think Donald Trump is the only Republican he can beat. I don't think he could beat any other Republican who could get nominated.
I absolutely agree with that, and I love Trump, and I know people get mad at me all the time. Trump will easily win a GOP primary, and again, I would bet $1 million. Now, I would do this bet because we got the next level bet. I would walk in front of the Capitol on Inauguration night in Jeff City, John, in a pair of Speedos and nothing else.
Wow. Flip-flops.
Flip-flops. Okay, flip-flops. If Trump,
dear God,
were to beat Joe Biden, quit laughing, Brian. If I will walk in front of the Capitol in Jefferson City in Speedos and flip-flops and nothing else.
Okay.
On the inaugural?
On the inauguration night.
That could be a little chilly. Yeah, that's one year when Joe Teasdale was inaugurated governor, it was 10 below zero, and they had a snowstorm, and the poor piano player had to play outside, and his hands had frostbite.
But Democrats, really, they have to coalesce around Biden. because they don't have anybody else. I'm just looking at the latest Real Clear polling on the Democratic side, and Biden is plus 31 because the rest of their field is so poor. And so I don't really think that they actually think he's doing a good job. I just think, well, he's easy because we can control him and he'll do, whatever we really want. And these other guys might get an idea or a wild hair. And plus, they for sure can't win. The closest person to him is, looks like Obama. That's probably Michelle Obama at 8. Harris at 7. I mean, Biden's at 39.
Robert Kennedy's in there somewhere. I mean,
where's Hillary when you need her?
But
she's on there. She's at number 4. She's got 4%.
I definitely, I don't know that I agree with Chris Christie on.
You don't?
I don't know about that. I mean, I'm looking at it from. I don't. No one really knows. We're all kind of speculating here. I just am saying that I think President Biden is whoever the nominee is going to be, would be tough to beat. I also think President Trump, he only lost by maybe 8,000 votes if you combine him out of 3 states. Of course, he was arguing the Facebook suppressed him and stuff, but it was very close. If you take Arizona, Wisconsin, there was another state, Georgia, I believe. He didn't. He darn near pulled it off.
But and here's the thing that I go to is that there'd be even more distaste for Trump now, and that's why I just think he would do. He would not win a 2024 general, and I wished he would. Believe me, listen. There's Trump, then there's Hannity, and then there's Giuliani, and then there's Rathert that want this guy to win. But I also have to be realistic, and I just don't feel it happening. Welcome into Wake Up Mid-Missouri. I am Branden Rathert, 874-9390. What do you think about the 2024 presidential race? Because we're only, the first GOP debate, we keep talking about the election is still well over a year and a half away. The first GOP debate is coming up 4 months from now. It's going to be in August, so...
Yeah.
Ooh, can we have a party?
Let's do.
I love a good debate watch. Oh, it was so fun.
That's Stephanie Bell. Good morning, Steph.
Good morning.
How are you today, kiddo?
I'm good.
All right, Mr. Houseworth, how are you today?
Hanging in there. We had a busy day yesterday.
Yeah, intense scene. We go to Columbia yesterday, and here's what made this, in my mind, kind of a newsworthy event. Listen, shots fired all the time in Columbia, unfortunately. Usually relegated to a certain part of town. This shooting at a gas station at a business yesterday wasn't in the normal part of town where we're used to seeing these shootings. I went down, so this was at Hy-Vee gas station, shops at Broadway and 63, and then apparently law enforcement kind of surrounded the country club, so I drove down Old 63 heading north from Broadway to the business loop, and Columbia Police Department had cars stationed at several of the intersections on both sides of Old 63.
They did not, and that is great description. That is really, that's good reporting, because the police, and I get it, it's part of the investigation. They did not announce that. The suspect, either one or two, we still don't know, they're being very tight-lipped, was seen running towards the Columbia Country Club, which is not far. The car was parked at Aldi's after the shooting. But I can tell you, Brandon, I went out to the gas station yesterday. It was blocked off when I was going to court for Emma Adams' court appearance, so I had to come back. You couldn't get in. But there are cones that are set up at 2 gas pumps. And Chris Bryant, who's the chief photographer, told me that they actually took the gas pumps, took them apart. We're not sure why. I can't figure that out. That's unclear. Obviously, it has something to do with the shooting. Maybe they had bullet holes. I don't know. 2 cars were also towed from the scene, and it was just a and then there was a highway patrol helicopter flying above the country club and flying above the gas station.
It was pretty intense scene. John, what do you know about this officer-involved shooting that happened over the weekend? Just learning of this yesterday, but apparently an officer-involved shooting in Camdenton.
Yeah, we understand it happened about 8:30 Sunday night, and Camden police officers said they were called out to a restaurant where there was a disturbance, a verbal confrontation, whatever you want to call it, between a couple of people. They tried to take a man into custody. A woman pulled a gun on the cop, and the cop shot her. She's now in the hospital in stable condition. One of the officers had minor shoulder injuries.
And apparently this young lady, some guy she was with, but apparently they dressed in military fatigues all the time, and they take part in like Civil War reenactments or something. Apparently, neighbors say she was known to walk around with a prop gun. And we don't know if that was the case here in this specific situation, but apparently she was kind of known to her neighbors. This is a dude from Camden chatting with KRCG.
But I just think the community needs to get a little bit more closer because of this incident. You know, the police need to know all the people in the neighborhoods or whatever, stop, talk, do whatever we got to do. But something's got to change.
Community policing is what I hear that guy saying. There's producer Hannah. How are you today?
I am here.
All right, good. I know it's only 6:17, but do we know what's coming up and what's hot with Hannah this morning, 7:25-ish?
You know it's always a surprise.
874-9390, 874-9390. And if you want to get involved in what's happening in politics, you want to chat with a whole bunch of state lawmakers out of Jefferson City, the Eagle, and KWOS sponsoring Boone County Lincoln Days. This is coming up Monday, April 17th, Stony Creek Inn, 5 o'clock that night was when the event begins. Program dinner, 6 o'clock. This year's keynote speaker, State Treasurer Vivek Malik. Do we know yesterday after we had, now in case you missed it, you got to go check out the Wake Up Mid-Missouri On Demand podcast anytime, all the time. Go to KWOS.com, 939theeagle.com. You go to yesterday's 8 o'clock hour presidential candidate on the GOP side, Vivek Ramaswamy, joined us on the show. Fascinating conversation. I'd like to sit down for like 30 minutes with the dude, get more of his personal story. Great conversation with him yesterday right here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri. 874-9390, 874-9390. So Joe Biden says he wants to lay eggs at the White House. That's what he said, man.
White eggs or brown eggs? I
don't know. That's just, maybe I'll be the guy who put him out on the other end. It just blows me away.
Coming election in 2024.
Well, I'll either roll an egg or being the guy who's pushing them out.
Come on.
874-9390, 874-9390. Chris is in Columbia. Chris, welcome into the show. What's on your mind?
Good morning, Brandon. Good morning, everyone. Gordon Deal this morning featured an article where they have already started surveying some pollsters, and they're actually finding that the indictments on Trump haven't really affected anyone. It's, he gave the example of a twig on a bonfire for Democrats that already don't like him. And then the Republicans, most are skeptical of the indictments in general. So I'm not sure that the indictments are really going to affect anything. If you watch the youth and the social medias, I know I TikTok and I probably shouldn't because China knows everything about me now, but there's a big movement of young people, minorities that are really swaying towards the conservative voice and away from the progressive voice. So I think it's gonna be a tight election. I can't believe there's still people that support Biden.
I'm Chris. I am with you, brother, and we appreciate you taking time out of your day to be a part of Wake Up Mid-Missouri. And I agree. I call it the snapback. People getting more and more away from that woke stuff. They're standing around going, "Wait, we did what? We're supporting this stuff?" Snapback. And I'm with you, Chris. Hopefully, folks will realize what Biden is doing. He's just poor for our country. Coming up, we are going to be doing your daily D.C. rundown featuring Stephanie Bell.
We've got the latest on the leaked
This is information that has no business in the public domain. It has no business, if you don't mind me saying, on the pages of front pages of newspapers or on television. It is not intended for public consumption, and it should not be out there.
Well, Stephanie Bell's calling BS on John Kirby, saying press should not be reporting on leaked Pentagon documents. That's what's getting us into today's Daily DC Rundown. Stephanie, please do tell us what John Kirby and the White House administration doesn't want us to know.
Well, they're already out there, and the interesting part is where they came from initially. So they apparently leaked in a chat room. And if you're my age, you're thinking, I didn't know AOL was still around. But not that kind of chat room. It's the Discord platform, which is a chat room that's really popular with gamers. That appears to be where they first showed up. And then they've been shared throughout that. But that was several months ago, and it only came to the government's attention more recently that apparently these are leaked on the internet. They appear to have folds in them. Maybe like they were folded up like a letter to be carried out of whatever meeting they were in. And I'm thinking, again, when we talk about all of the documents in the garage and everything else, I have to carry a clear purse into a sporting event, but apparently you can just fold stuff up and really important things and just hide them when you're like, can we implement a clear bag policy for important meetings or something?
Try this at Faroe Field next season. Walk in with your clear purse or backpack with folded up documents and write in big red letters, confidential.
Classified military secrets. So they still don't exactly know where they're leaking from. They apparently show an anticipated spring offensive and a bunch of other stuff that the government says they don't want you to know. Of course, there's lots of conspiracy theories out there about whether maybe the government does want you to know some of this. It's very bizarre.
Wait, video gamers are hacking federal secrets, federal classified military documents from the Pentagon? These are video gamers doing this?
Apparently. Biden is set to propose additional EPA regulations to now it's not 50% of EVs by 2032. We have to have 54%. We're increasing the percentage. Did anyone think we were going to get to 50%? Anyway?
I don't, and I hope we don't. And this is so frustrating. I am not a fan of electric vehicles at all, but I believe that's the way that we are going, whether we like it or not. But you see here, if you're somebody who supports Biden, supports what he has done, what the White House has done, they want us under their thumb. They want to control everything we do. They want to control what kind of appliances you cook with in your kitchen. They want to control what kind of car you drive, no matter how bad of a policy this is for us. They want to control everything you do.
And only about 4 in 10 adults said they are at least somewhat likely to switch to an EV. So it's really unpopular. But again, this is just a regulation being announced. It should be announced on Wednesday. There'll be a public comment period. We don't expect the regulation to go into effect for another year.
And here's the other frustrating thing. Apparently, a lot of these electric vehicles, and I know Ford announced last week they're going to drop them from all vehicles. A lot of them are not including AM radio. Before we start with Clarence Thomas and these claims
Yes,
against
sir.
Clarence Thomas, who you've hobnobbed with before, what's got you giggling this morning?
I just, I picked up the phone and it hung up, and I just called back in, and Hannah, instantly clicked me back in, and it sounded like you were introducing my wife for the segment today. I was like, am I doing a segment?
The first time I called, I got your voicemail. I figured you were just standing us up again.
No, never. That one time I was sick, guys. I overslept. I woke up probably about 11 that morning.
Listen. He's got all these excuses. Just roll. I was sick. I woke up late. I was this. Man, I think the last time you've been on the show, it was still winter officially, Chris.
I think it was 2022. Wasn't
it? Incidentally, we did actually almost call Becky this morning. Somebody gave the wrong phone number.
Somebody
here in the show.
That wasn't me.
Put the wrong phone number on the show clock.
It's a good thing that another somebody said, hey, that number doesn't look right.
And that's why you're here. That's producer Han. There's Stephanie Belch. John Marsh is here. My name is Branden Rathert. Something we could do for you, 874-9390. We are glad you are here. ChrisArps.com. You see him on Newsmax TV all the time. By the way, I can watch you again on my local cable provider.
Isn't that fantastic? I'm glad AT&T and DirecTV decided this was bad PR for them, trying to de-platform a strong conservative television network, and came to their senses. We had, a couple of weeks ago, we had Mr. Ruddy on the St. Louis radio show talking about this, so we were very fortunate to have him.
And here's the other thing I wonder. Stephanie and I were just talking a few minutes ago. Ford says they're going to quit putting AM radio into their vehicles. Apparently, one of the things that I've been learning, a lot of these new electric vehicles that Joe Biden is forcing you through regulations, forcing you to buy electric vehicles. That's incredible BS. They don't have AM in them. And I might be digging a little bit down into the what if barrel, but I like to get conspiratorial sometimes. I think it's another way because even though I just think that because of the overwhelming presence of conservative, intelligent, smart talk radio on AM signals, we're on 950 AM, I believe it's another way they're trying, let's get rid of conservative voices. Am I digging? Did I hit the bottom of that what if barrel?
I think you went under the barrel, underground. You're headed to China on that one. I think AM radio is just dead, Brandon. No one listens to it anymore. Why put it in vehicles? Most talk radio stations are FM stations. I think AM is just a dinosaur. You know what's really weird? I was born in 1966. 1971, my mom bought me, when I was 5 years old, a little radio to listen to. And it was an AM FM radio. I can remember the days when you'd go to the FM dial and there would be no stations at all. It was just a desert. And just amazing now. Everything's on FM. No one listens to AM. It's been a complete turnaround over the last 50-plus years.
We want to welcome those of you listening to us this morning on AM 950 KWOS.
Sorry.
Yikes, Chris.
See, and I would.
It's a dinosaur. AM dead.
Oh, gosh. Wow.
Hey, Chris, management on line one.
And I was.
Well, everybody's going to streaming, FM. So I don't think I'm saying anything out of turn. I don't think. Am I going to be back next week?
I saw this great map on LinkedIn that actually does show the AM usage in cars, and it's insane. I will send it to you, Chris. But I think it has to do with, a lot of these corporations, the folks at the top are these left, coastal elite folks who, watch TikTok all day long and are completely out of touch with people and have and just talk to each other and just watch that Bud Light gal on TikTok, So I don't think they're in touch with regular people. And I think if you were to talk to Chuck the truck driver or any of our friends here in Mid-Mo, they would say, yeah, I turn the AM dial on quite frequently. And especially when it comes to emergencies and other things, people still turn to AM quite a bit.
I believe that, and I'm not trying to disparage AM too much.
Too late.
But, there's a very, very popular FM guy who had an afternoon drive talk show. He ended up going over to our major AM station here. His show switched over there. He lost so many of his audience because a lot of the audience told him and said, I just can't listen to AM radio. It just hurts my ears. It doesn't come in as well. I don't like it. He lost a big percentage of his audience because he went over to AM radio.
Welcome into the show. It's Wake Up Mid-Missouri, 93.9 The Eagle, 104.5 News Radio, 950 AM, KWOS. Christopher Arps on his farewell tour here on the show this morning. Hanging out with us. Let's start. So there's claims against SCOTUS Justice Clarence Thomas saying he's taken these gifts over the years. I know you all have hung out before, and the left progressives are saying, oh, my God, he took all these gifts and he never reported them. Bottom line of the story and your take on it, Chris.
Well, first of all, I just want to say I think Clarence Thomas and I hanging out is a little strong way to put it. I got a chance to meet him a couple of times and take pictures with him. Look, Clarence Thomas has had a target on his back ever since he was nominated to take over Thurgood Marshall's seat. We remember all of the deal with Anita Hill where he was accused of sexual shenanigans. We remember all of the disparagement against him when they said that he was trying to cut was disparaging his sister because she was on welfare. He's had a target on his back all of this time. So they've been trying to reach and search to get him. If you remember, during January 6th, his wife, Jenny Thomas, who is a activist, she was involved in some of the January 6th situation. They were trying to impeach him and censor him because of his wife's activities, which is crazy. And now this latest allegation from ProPublica, and he admitted that he has taken gifts from Harlan Crow, a very wealthy, his company, his great-grandfather started it, but it's the largest development company in the world. He's taken gifts and planes and things like that. And you know, it can look bad, I get that, but they both have admitted, and even the critics have admitted, that Harlan Crow has not had any business before the Supreme Court. Look, can't you have friends, wealthy friends? I don't see a big deal about it if he's never had any business before the court.
All right, our guest, Chris Arps. ChrisArps.com. You see him on Newsmax TV all the time. By the way, I think you really enjoy his website, ChrisArps.com. You like his appearances here. He puts a lot of cool things I think that you would be interested in. Chris Arps joining us this morning on Wake Up Mid-Missouri.
Chris, the ties that Clarence Thomas has to Jefferson City, I don't think a lot of people realize that when he was fresh on the bar, he was an assistant attorney general for Jack Danforth, and he shared an office with Assistant Attorney General John Ashcroft at the time. Then he went on to be a Reagan appointee. So he's got some pretty classy bona fides, doesn't he?
He does. And, you know, I talked to him about that when I saw him last year in Dallas at this conference. And he said some of the best years of his life he had here in Missouri. He actually also lived in St. Louis for a little while. He was naming the neighborhood that he lived in for a short period of time. People didn't know this, but he was a corporate lawyer for Monsanto after he left the Attorney General's office. So Clarence Thomas has fond memories of Missouri and of St. Louis, and a prominent lawyer here in St. Louis, Jerry Hunter, who served as the National Labor Relations Board General Counsel under President George H.W. Bush. They worked together in Danforth's office back in the early 70s, and they count each other as close friends to this day.
All right. Hey, can you hang out with us for a little bit?
Well, yeah, of course I can.
Dude, it's been wintertime since you've been on. You bet your ass you're going to hang out with us a little bit longer. You trashed one of my radio stations that my friends Stephanie and John and Hannah are on. You're staying around till 9 o'clock until we get into the Gary Knowledge show.
Apologize to the Zimmers for me, will you, please?
Yeah, we can do that. Actually, we want to ask you about, apparently, Kim Gardner, the much maligned circuit attorney in St. Louis. She has some competition. And maybe talk about, because one of the big pieces that's been pushing forward in Jefferson City this year, state control of the police department. This is an interesting internal battle for me. I'm all about local control unless you start to put people in harm's way. So what would that mean if the state takes control of the St. Louis Police Department? We're going to cover this with Chris Arps here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri. Do that in like 5 minutes from now.
the producer.
This is why we listen to you. Get ready, pal.
And now, here's your host, Branden Rathert.
In my world, that's waste.
How is that waste?
If I give you $1 billion and you can't tell me what happened to it, that to me is wasteful. That means you are not responsible. But if you can't tell me where it went, then what am I supposed to think? And when there has been reporting, I mean, this is not, look, I'm not saying this is on you and that you caused this, but I think it's a tough argument to
I'm pretty
make
sure
that
I didn't cause it.
an $850 billion budget to an organization that can't pass an audit and tell you where that money went, like, I think most people would consider that somewhere in the realm of waste, fraud, or abuse, because they would wonder why that money isn't well accounted for.
Amazingly simple. Jon Stewart asking Kathleen Hicks, she's U.S. Deputy Secretary of Defense, about the budget, $860 billion budget, another audit on the Defense Department, and they can't account for like 60% of it. So I remember as a kid, my mom would give me some money, and this is when we lived in Farrar, Missouri, Farrar, southeast Missouri, Perry County. We lived in a town, 64 people, and right below the chicken coops in town, we had a little general store, and I loved it. It reminded me of Crane's Country Store, actually. And my mom would give me $10. You go and you get some milk, you get some bread, and get me a pack of Benson and Hedges 100 menthol, and then bring the change home. And I'd come home and I had no change because I was buying, Reese's peanut butter cups and stuff down there at the Dollar General store, chatting with the owner, old dude named Herbie. And I'd come back, and my mom wanted me to itemize my expenses. I couldn't do it. I don't know, Mom. So I bought the milk, and I brought the bread, and I bought the pack of Benson and Hedges menthol 100s. And my mom would say, well, that should come out to $4.87, John. So where's the other, whatever that is, $5.13?
He bought an F-22.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We bought an F-22 fighter jet over here. That's where. And my mom, if I could not account for that money that my mom gave to me, it wasn't even my money. If I don't budget my money, if I can't account for it, that's fine. It's my money. But the government has Stephanie Bell's money, and they can't account for what they're doing with Stephanie's money.
Yeah, it just happened to me this weekend. We were at that school geography bee, and I gave the kids $10, and they went and bought, some stuff, and they came back and just looked at me. I'm like, where's my change, man? Come on.
But look, Mom, I bought a Blue Angel.
I know.
It really is that simple. And so the White House, the administration, they don't think it's important to account for your money. And we think I used to think that just because I didn't see it in my paycheck, it's not my money, it's not my money, it's not my money, even though I earned it, it goes to the government. And I don't think about what the government is spending money they have taken out of my bank account. They've taken out of my wallet. You got to be able to account for that.
And he's like, isn't that the very definition of waste, fraud, and abuse? And she's like, no. And he's like, I mean, what's the difference between like lighting it on fire or like it went poof? Like where? Like she's like, I don't know where it went. And she's like, but it's not waste, fraud, or abuse. How do you know? I mean, maybe it isn't. But like, unless you know how you spend it or where it went.
Again, Steph, I think we need to seek the counsel of our news directors here, Brian Hausworth. How does that work? $860 billion. We don't need to account for that. We don't know what happened to it.
Yeah, the Congress has what we call oversight, and traditionally it has been a bipartisan issue, but we're in such a polarizing environment right now. I can tell you if someone had an answer like that even 10, 20 years ago, they would have been grilled by the senators on both sides of the aisle. I can only imagine. Joe Biden would have been one of them. Mm-hmm. He absolutely would have been one of them. They're just, now if you criticize any administration official, whoever the party is in power, you're considered partisan. But the reality is oversight is important, and she didn't seem to know where some of the dollars were there. I mean, whoever, so.
What about you, John? Any explanation as to where is a situation where it's okay, I don't need to account for the money that you gave me?
Well, yeah, and I think the average person out there, with all the coverage we see of the Chinese threatening Taiwan and $80 million a crack for F-35 fighters, and you can't justify where the defense budget is going, I thought that would be a line item kind of thing. You could go down line by line by line and reassure the taxpayers, here's what we're doing with the defense budget.
We bought some F-35. We bought some tanks. We bought some toilet paper. Here's where all the money has been, and here's where it goes. And by the way, Jon Stewart continued great line of questioning of the Deputy Secretary of Defense.
And can't figure out how $850 billion to a department means that the rank and file still have to be on food stamps. Like, to me, that's fucking corruption. I'm sorry. And if that blows your mind, like, that's like a crazy agenda.
It was edited. There's an issue with the computer.
Apparently not.
I promise. So the computer crashed, and now it's playing. So see, it's playing.
Don't play it again.
If that blows your mind,
Get ready with the button.
Sorry about that. I have proof. I edited it out. No, the computer crashed after I did it. I brought it back up, so there's something there. Oops. Hopefully it didn't go through. Let's move forward to a phone call. So the point that Jon Stewart was making there was that, so you have an $860 billion budget. You can't account for the money, and we have service members that are on food stamps, and they can't explain any of that.
And I'll tell you, the thing about and he definitely leans left. There is no question about it, no doubt about it. But whoever the guest is, he holds them accountable. And people go on that show on both sides, and they don't prepare. I mean, I don't understand why anyone would go on there and not be prepared.
Jon Stewart, who came to fame when he was hosting the Daily Show on Comedy Central, he was always a very intelligent interview.
Good interview, very tough.
And if you have a chance, go look up this. It's like a full 6 minutes. It is awkward. And she kind of gets like a Kamala thing going where there's like a really nervous laugh. And it makes me feel uncomfortable because you can tell how agitated she is by just him asking the question.
874-9390. Roy is in Columbia this morning. What's up, Roy?
Well, just one thing really quickly. This same government that can't keep billions of dollars straight is pressing to go to digital currency where they will know every nickel in your bank account and can turn it off with a switch.
Yep, I hear you, Roy. Thank you for the phone call. Austin says via text, I sure as heck ain't using the money to maintain our son's F-15. Why the heck is she on with Jon Stewart? Anyway, I don't know why she was on with Jon Stewart, but she did, and he asked some really good questions.
And he definitely holds people accountable from both parties. And I know he angers our listeners at times, at least some of them. But again, whoever goes on that show, and Republicans have gone on there too and not been prepared, and he holds them accountable too.
And here's the interesting thing: if we played that without saying who that was, that hey, this was Jon Stewart. He used to host the Daily Show. He's very active in 911 first responders, 9/11, the folks that went to the World Towers that day. He's spent a lot of time trying to make sure that they have been compensated after what happened there. But if you didn't say who it was, I mean, they're good questions either way. I don't care what his political affiliation is.
No, I agree. And if without any context, you would think he's grilling some would say he's grilling Republican. But again, he grills both sides of the aisle. I mean, no doubt about that.
Welcome into the show. It's Wake Up Mid-Missouri. There's some confusion, apparently, after 1 week ago. Voters, pretty much in just about any municipality I can think of, approved an additional tax on the recreational weed. Boone County Presiding Commissioner Kendrick, he's going to be joining us 7:35. And then following this ruling by a Texas judge last week regarding the FDA approval process for the abortion pill, there's some numbers coming in on what people think. That's one of the other things we are going to be covering this morning. Stephanie Bell, Brian Hausworth, John Marsh, there's producer Hannah. And meanwhile, the other thing that's happening, Pentagon leaks. And you have John Kirby. Stephanie Bell covered this in the Daily D.C. Rundown. We do that every morning, 6:25. Check out what John Kirby has to say. And this has to do with some documents apparently been leaked by kids playing video games in their mom's basement or something like that.
Yeah, it's on a platform called Discord, which is popular with gamers. And that's where they think the documents were initially leaked in this chat room, and then they've been spread since then. Apparently they show like folds, like they were folded up in someone's pocket as they left the White House, and then someone, I don't know, took a picture or scanned them in and posted them in these, Super Mario Brothers chat rooms, I guess. I don't think it's Super Mario Brothers. I don't really know.
Is there some guy with a screen name of Julian involved, possibly?
Well, they say it's probably the most significant leak since those leaks.
Nice
WikiLeaks.
Nice reference to Julian Assange. And John Kirby, here's his take on this while he's talking about this to the press from the White House yesterday.
Again, without confirming the validity of the documents, this is information that has no business in the public domain. It has no business, if you don't mind me saying, on the pages of front pages of newspapers or on television. It is not intended for public consumption, and it should not be out there.
Stephanie Bell an hour ago said to heck with that. Here it is, folks. There you go. 874-9390. 874-9390. So if you're one of those and you're trying to figure out, and by the way, these things, they all matter. And I think the big thing with Jon Stewart and Kathleen Hicks, Deputy Secretary for the Department of Defense, here's why those things matter. It's your money. Even though you never really see it, look on your paychecks, man. It's your money, and you have the people that are taking money out of your check, and they're spending it, and they're saying, I don't know where it went. Listen, you don't know how you spent your own money. That's one thing. But if you don't know how you have spent my money, that's an issue.
Well, and this just in, I guess, you know how we love to hate on Don Lemon. Well, apparently got caught on a hot mic, too, about this Jon Stewart interview, and people were giving Jon Stewart all this praise, saying what a great interview that was. Well, I guess Don Lemon got his feelings hurt, and it appears that he got caught on a hot mic, and he said, yeah, he's got a lot of leeway with that comedian thing, though.
He's past his prime to boot.
Right. But basically, dissing Jon Stewart in that interview, because I think he was sad about his own self-worth. But anyway, but it's Don Lemon is a whole nother thing. I can't believe he's still on. But definitely a quality interview by Jon Stewart and really well done. And again, if you have the time to watch the whole thing, it's worth watch.
Don Lemon facing more problems of his own besides that comment about women being past their prime. Apparently, there was a report, saw this in USA Today, in which apparently current employees and past co-workers are saying, this is a misogynistic SOB. Like, it's not just that he calls women chicks, like some people we know. Like, he's full on hating on women and stuff.
And here he's, dissing Jon Stewart for just being a comedian. But what we know is, like, people, like, who's famous for using comedy? People like Ronald Reagan. I mean, comedy has been used for years and years in politics and in journalism to break down barriers, to really get to the true issue and to relax people. So that way you get a better story. So the fact that he's using that just shows, like, that he doesn't understand and doesn't have that power and is just jealous.
And I think, who else uses comedy to make important points and question servants?
You?
No, us. The show.
The sitting
humble
president.
Brag. No. But Trump was good at that, right? I mean, he was good at finding ways to weave humor into his speeches, to hold people's attention, to relax people, to relate to people, and to make his points.
Coming up, Lincoln Days, Monday, Boone County Lincoln Days. Check out the Boone County Lincoln Days event. Get your tickets. That's Monday night, April 17th, Stony Creek Inn. State Treasurer Vivek Malik is going to be the featured speaker. Hannah, what do you have for What's Hot with Hannah this morning?
Well, I've already picked out my wedding venue, but I have ideas for other engaged couples out there.
All right, so Hannah's going to pass along some of her experience for her wedding, which is coming up September the 14th, 2023. How about that? It's coming up.
voters a question as to whether or not to approve a 3% sales tax on the sale of non-medicinal adult use marijuana sold in the city of Jefferson.
That's city council. That's actually Ryan Mellman talking about the weed tax, which passed, and I can't find any. There might be a couple, but I'm guessing from what I've seen all across the state of Missouri, all municipalities passed this no problem. It was an easy pass taxing recreational weed. By the way, first full month of sales. When did this stuff go on sale, John? It was like February 4th or 8th or something like that. So March. First full month, 31 days in the month of March, Missouri sold $126 million in 1 month. $93.5 million of recreational weed. The other was the medical marijuana sales. And apparently it still makes Missouri cheaper. We had somebody, did you see this on the text the other day? Somebody was sending us their receipts. They bought some weed over in Illinois and then bought some weed here. And they're like, man, the taxes here are a little bit cheaper. But how is that shaping up now that we have these municipalities that passed the tax on the recreational weed? Let's bring in Boone County Presiding Commissioner Kip Kendrick. Want to welcome you into the show. First thing, so apparently there is some confusion. We had people sending us, while we're talking about failed policies and things that are affecting us on a national level, people are sending us their weed receipts, Kip, saying, well, I'm already paying a tax. I don't understand why I'm voting on this tax. Can you break that down for us?
Yeah, so Amendment 3 that was passed in November of 2022, it had all the typical sales tax that you would see in the state of Missouri, the 4.25%, 4.225% at the state, the additional local sales tax that may be included as well. And then there was on top of that, there was a 6% sales tax that will be collected by the state. And then additional language that gave counties and municipalities across the state of Missouri the opportunity to place the question on the ballot about implementing an additional 3% local sales tax. And so you saw a lot of counties and municipalities across the state move on that at about the same time due to the recent passage of Amendment 3. And even municipalities across Boone County who don't yet have dispensaries still moved on it, and I would assume to avoid any confusion down the road and since Amendment 3 was still fresh in everybody's mind.
And then how does this work? Because I'm thinking, I look at cities like City of Jefferson, Cole County, City of Columbia, Boone County. What about the stackable aspect? Because it passed on county levels, passed on city levels. So in other words, let's say if somebody goes into a dispensary and let's say they go in Jefferson City and there's a 3% city tax and then there's a 3% county tax. How is that going to work in Boone County?
Yes. So Boone County, the way we read it is certainly the way the drafters of the constitutional amendment intended for it to be read, where it is not stackable. They define local governments in there and how that tax can be imposed, that basically Boone County will only collect on sales or receive disbursements of sales tax on dispensaries within unincorporated Boone County. And so I know that there's one, I believe that there's possibility of two. And then likewise, City of Columbia, they will collect on the 10 dispensaries within the City of Columbia. And so that tax is not intended to be stackable according to the drafters of the constitutional amendment. And it certainly reads that way. We know that is a question that will have to be determined by the Department of Revenue. They will have to figure it out. We would expect that this will likely be sorted out in court at some point down the road.
All right, Boone County Commissioner Kip Kendrick joining us this morning on Wake Up Mid-Missouri. I'm Branden Rathert, Stephanie Bell, producer Hannah, John Marsh, and Brian Houseworth hanging out with us.
Branden, thanks so much, Commissioner. We appreciate you joining us. I saw you last week at the Swift plant. It's always good to see you. The city is saying that their measure, ballpark, and this is just an estimate on their part, about $400,000 to $1 million a year. They believe it will take once it takes effect in October. Does the county have an estimate in any sense of where that money would go, at least some general areas?
Yeah, so Boone County we anticipate will be on the much lower end of that. So, especially The way we read it as non-stackable tax and only collecting on one, possibly two dispensaries at this point, anywhere from $50,000 to maybe a bit over $100,000 a year being collected and dispersed to Boone County. We intend to use it to offset the cost of the expungement process. That was a major part of Amendment 3 that would expunge certain criminal convictions as it relates to marijuana. And that process is automatic for the individual. There's nothing they have to do to trigger an expungement process to begin, but it's certainly not automatic for the court system. Our county circuit clerk, Christy Blakemore, and her team are hard at work, working overtime, and we will likely be hiring additional staff to help meet those constitutional deadlines that have been implemented with Amendment 3. So we're going to use those funds through FY23, likely into FY24, potentially all the way through FY24 to make sure that process is as clean as possible. And then beyond FY25, likely and beyond, we'll make sure that the commission at that point has the flexibility as this money will go back into general revenue.
So here's one of the other things I think that was throwing people off when people were sending us the receipts of the gummies and the other things that they bought at the weed store. They were saying, but look, I'm already taxed. So there's a sales tax on stuff you buy. There's already a sales tax. These sales taxes are, in effect, it's a tax just because it's weed, I guess, for lack of a better phrase. One of our questions via text, 874-9390. So what is the total tax rate in a town, for example, like Columbia? So you have a sales tax, then you have the city rec weed tax, and then you have the county rec weed tax. Can any of us, when I say any of us, Kip, I mean you, can you do the math on that?
Yeah, so I want to say that with the local and state taxes, I want to say that their intention was to cap the tax at a bit less than 15%, and that falls pretty. That's certainly on the lower end of states who have passed the recreational marijuana measure, whether it be through the initiative petition process or by their general assemblies. That was certainly the intention of the drafters was to not put the taxes so high that they would force people out of state or be uncompetitive, I guess, at that point. And so they certainly see it as a user fee on the implementation side of the tax, and that's why when they put the option for the municipalities and counties to be able to ask that question before the voters, they already put a cap in there at 3%.
We had previously talked early on with the implementation of Amendment 3 to the Jefferson City Police Chief saying, hey, are you noticing anything different, about, marijuana being legal? Is there any additional pressures on you or your folks or anything like that? Now that we're a few months in, are you hearing anything, additional resources needed or pressures due to the implementation of Amendment 3?
Yeah, so I mean it's an interesting question. So Sheriff Gary and I were actually talking about that some more last week. There is certainly processing on their end. They play a part in the expungement process, and so he's having his staff closely track those hours so that we can, if that becomes a reimbursable expense from the state, then we can seek reimbursement. But it's also just important to track anyway so that we have a good amount of hour breakdown. Another issue that it created for the sheriff's office was the need to basically retire canines who sniff out marijuana because there's no way they can differentiate, or the handler could differentiate whether they smell marijuana or cocaine or another substance. So the Department of Public Safety at the state level put together a grant quickly over the last, I think, month and a half where they made funding available to counties and municipalities across the state to be able to start to replace those canines. And so I know that we have a canine. We received some grant funding at this county level where we're going to bring on an additional canine, get it trained up, and retire at least one canine that is trained to smell marijuana.
All right. Boone County, Presiding Commissioner Kip Kendrick. Anything else you'd like to add as it relates to our conversation before we let you go?
Well, so as I mentioned before, it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out with the Department of Revenue on the stackable portion. We're of course not reading it. We're reading it as the drafters intended for it to be read. That's not stackable, but that decision won't be made by us. It'll be made at the state level. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
All right, Kip Kendrick, Presiding Commissioner, Boone County. Thanks for hanging out with us this morning on Wake Up Mid-Missouri.
I appreciate your time. Thank you.
All right. If you enjoy what you're listening to, I would encourage you to go to Best of Columbia Magazine's. It's Inside Columbia Magazine, Best of Columbia 2023. And you don't have to live in Columbia to vote. It's brought to you in part by the company, Wendy Sweat's Real Estate and 911 Restoration of Central Missouri. The show that you are listening to with Stephanie and Hannah and Brian Hausworth and John Marsh is up for Radio Show of the Year, Best Local Radio Show. So if you would, get on there and vote for my friends and family members here.
And Brandon is a finalist for Best Radio Personality, so you can vote twice for the show here.
Coming up just a few minutes from now, another one bites the dust.
Democratic Party has become unrecognizable to me and to so many others throughout this state and this country. The party wants to villainize anyone who has free thought, free judgment, has solutions, who wants to get to work to better our state, not just sit in a meeting and have a workshop after a workshop, but really work with individuals to get things done.
That's Tricia Cotham, North Carolina, state representative, switched parties. She left the Democrat Party, became Republican, and there is more good. So she's not the only one. And I would venture to say this might even be, well, on a state level, I think it's even more important. I go back to a lot of times, the more localer, the more importanter. So these state legislatures, you've got her. Incidentally, that gave the state house in North Carolina, gave them a super majority last month. So this Tricia Cotham, she was the second one in recent memory. Last month, Louisiana State Representative Francis Thompson gave Republicans in the state house a supermajority after he switched his party affiliation from Democrat to Republican. And now we have a third one. This guy's name is Jeremy Lacombe. He announced that he left the Democratic Party. He's going to be registering as a Republican. He is in the state house in Louisiana. And he says they're saying basically the same thing. Like, y'all going just a little too far for my tastes.
Yeah, but I try to imagine being one of their constituents and sitting here and all of a sudden Caleb Rowden being like, okay, I'm a Democrat. And being like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Hold up.
That's because I think about, and I've compared it in the past to, like, let's say you have somebody who you elect to be Attorney General, for example, and you vote for them. I think you're going to be there for 4 years. And then you leave. I'm guessing that's frustrating to a lot of people. But yeah, you switch your party. When I vote, that's almost like being expelled from a state house. And not quite, because then you can get voted right back in, which we saw happen yesterday in Tennessee.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I wonder if you could be brought up by switching your party by folks saying, hey, you know what, we're going to expel you because this isn't what you were elected here to do. Apparently, at least in Tennessee, they said you weren't elected to show up and with the megaphone and yell and disrupt, and so they kicked 2 folks out. But Tennessee has some procedure by which the local, the Nashville council or local club can reinstate you as an interim representative until they have time to do a special election. And so literally they get kicked out last week, and like today they get Reva one gets voted in back in yesterday and gets to show back up to work today. How awkward is that? Like walking back into the chamber being like, hi.
Yeah, that would not be fun, John. I wouldn't.
Well, what happened to censure? You know, it seemed awfully radical and all, but that they were disrupting the proceedings.
Well, yeah, it's a weird one. I'm glad they're gone. They're Democrats. One of them is back now. Here's the thing that honestly does scare me. I know I'm not going to toe the party line here, but I will never do that. I'll just be honest. I think it's frightening because I'll go back to state legislative bodies all across America. You get Democrats. They're going, who's the Republicans we can kick out of here? The other thing, by the way, only one of these guys who's booted out so far, only one has been voted to return from the Nashville Council. I'm wondering, so does he get back today and then do Republicans vote to kick him out again? Can you do that? You see how silly this can become?
Yeah, I mean, and it brings up a good point, and I think in my mind it brings up a point like when we're talking about Kim Gardner, and if she gets ousted through the Quo action, people are like, well, she's just going to get reelected, and so you're like, okay, I ousted her, but now here she's coming back, and I know there's legislation that says, hey, once you're ousted, you know, you're disqualified, you can't come back, but that's, you know, not the law yet in Missouri. But you think about Missouri history and, you know, how serious it would actually be to be ousted from a position where the voters voted you in. And it's only, in my recollection, it's only happened once in Missouri, and that was Representative Rick Raber. And I think it happened, I think it was 20 or 21. And if you recall, I think it was his children that came forward and said they were like abused by, I mean, really serious allegations, and the House actually voted to expel him. But that's I mean, there have been some serious allegations. Most people, when those types of allegations come up, actually resign or withdraw. And I think he refused, and then I think the House did vote to expel him. But, you know, it wasn't for use of a megaphone.
And AOC wants to kick Clarence Thomas. off the Supreme Court of the United States. Completely different topic. Check this out. Yesterday, I had a kind of a work assignment to do, and I didn't have a lot of time. I used ChatGPT.
No, you didn't.
He did.
Oh my gosh.
And it was, I got to tell you, man.
It wasn't bad.
It was really good.
Someone told me that they got a mobile, that you can use it on your phone now.
Oh, I'm using it for everything now. Everything. Like, life is so much, I don't have to do anything anymore.
You don't even have to think.
No.
It's gotten really good.
So I used it for an assignment. I had to write this thing. It was like 30 seconds, that's all. And I was like, well, let's give it a shot. ChatGPT, write a thing on...
You know it's being sued for defamation, right? It's defamed people.
Oh, there's a lot of news surrounding artificial intelligence. We might get into that. And then reaction continues to spill out following a Texas judge's ruling Friday on the abortion pill. We'll have some of that coming up 8:10.
What is happening?
Broadcasting live from the Zimmer Communications World Headquarters.
Great news for the American people.
This is Wake Up Mid-Missouri with Branden Rathert, featuring Stephanie Bell, News Director Brian Houseworth, John Marsh, and Hannah, the producer.
This is why we listen to you. Get ready, pal.
And now, here's your host, Branden Rathert.
Mr. President, will you be taking part in the Easter egg rolls after 2024?
Well, I plan on at least 3 or 4 more Easter egg rolls.
At least 3 or 4 more?
Maybe 5.
Maybe 5?
maybe 6.
So
what the hell?
Are you saying that you would be taking part in our upcoming election in 2024?
Well, I'll either roll an egg or being the guy who's pushing them out.
Come on.
Joe Biden, what's that? Hannah, can anybody decipher what does he mean there?
I'll either roll an egg or being the guy who's pushing them out.
Come on.
That's a visual, man.
My first thought is he wants to literally lay the eggs. But maybe he just means he wants to be the guy who puts the eggs out on the ground?
I see that. My kids are obsessed with, I think it's from Carrie's Hallmark. It's like a little chicken, and you put the eggs in the top, and it walks around, and it poops out the little eggs, and they think it's so... That's what I see when I hear, I'm going to be... What did he say? I'm going to be the guy pushing them out?
I'll either roll an egg or being the guy who's pushing them out.
Come on.
Your president wants to be a Pez dispenser. John, are you seeing the visual on this? Joe Biden...
I'm trying not to.
Walking across the White House lawn.
What was he trying to say?
I don't know, man.
I'm kind of like Hannah. Yeah, he wanted to be the guy to go around for a few more years since he'll be living at the White House and be the guy hiding the eggs for the kids.
Like,
more surprises hidden for you than just eggs, kids.
And I envision Joe like looking like a chicken, a little chicken beard thing they have, and a beak put on, just walking across the White House lawn, just dropping eggs every few feet. I can see it. You know what's remarkable about that, and I think this is a really good moment here, because and we know people that are new to this radio station, new to what we do here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri, featuring Stephanie Bell, Brian Houseworth, producer Hannah, John Marsh. My name is Branden. Nice to meet you. By the way, I think we're all going to be at Boone County Lincoln Days event next Monday night, April 17th, Stony Creek Inn. Go online, search Boone County Lincoln Days. Starts at 5 o'clock that night, but the real fun starts at 6 o'clock. There's a meal program, featured keynote speaker, State Treasurer Vivek Malik. If you've not heard his story that he's told here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri, it is a really cool story.
And you guys got to help us out a little bit, because I think there is still like a little bit of competition among the counties. And Cole County had a really good turnout. We were there. I went up to St. Charles, and they all say like, this is the best Lincoln Day of all the counties. So I want to be able to take a picture at Boone County and be like, look at the turnout right here in Mid-Mo.
I agree on the Cole County Lincoln Days. I mean, they knocked it out of the park this year, John.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was huge.
It's always well attended.
Yeah. And they had the governor, too. That's anytime you can land a sitting governor in Cole County, that's a big deal.
Well, and I know this year Boone County moved their event from Friday to Monday, but that they always, in Cole County, it's always on is President's Day on the Monday. And that date has always worked out really well. So I'm hopeful that this Monday will mean a bigger turnout for Boone County.
So you hear Joe, and we hear him talk, and there's people, because we get the troll texts all the time. Oh, you guys are just making fun of the president. No, we point out facts and his diminished mental state. So you can listen to things like this whenever he talks, whether it's a speech or a report.
I'll either roll an egg or being the guy who's pushing.
He's much like me. Sometimes he loses a grasp on the words that he's trying to push out of his mouth.
And he does stutter. He's admitted to that.
But Joe Biden 2 years ago.
The United States ended 20 years of war in Afghanistan, the longest war in American history. We completed one of the biggest airlifts in history.
He's diminished since even 2 years ago. By the way, that is audio of him talking about how the day after the Afghanistan pullout, how big of a success it was. That was the day after. Oh, look at what I did. I'm hugely successful. And then last week, what did he do as it relates to Afghanistan?
We've got a report saying how horrible it was and how it was all Trump's fault. I thought you were going to give him some kudos this morning, though, honestly, because he did end COVID yesterday.
So how is this going to go over for people? And I didn't know that we were still in the midst of a COVID emergency. Is anybody else aware? I know you are, Brian. You know everything. And that's a compliment, by the way.
I think most people thought it was over a while ago.
Yeah, apparently. And Joe, he's making it known he's not happy about signing this, but saying the COVID emergency is over. Majority of Americans, according to a Kaiser Family Foundation poll, for what polls are worth, said, we already thought it was over because people quit washing their hands and stuff like that.
Gross. But, I mean, this has big implications. It is officially, it's a resolution that officially ends the federal emergency, and there are policies that have been tied to it being an official emergency, one being the policy at the border and the other being student loan forgiveness. So, I mean, the actual ending of the pandemic does have potentially some ramifications.
And Brandon brings up a point about some people get, maybe not wearing their the mask. I don't see that as much anymore, but washing hands is still very important. I mean, just
it always has been.
It is. I mean, and you always want to do that no matter what the time frame is, and wipes, that could affect the flu and everything else because we are dealing with some flu season now as well.
I talk to a lot of moms and a lot of other people with small children. I don't know what it's been about this winter and this spring, but we've been through the ringer. We've had it all, and I know lots of other families are. But I thought we had had it all between strep and pink eye and hand, foot, and mouth, and now we have the throw ups apparently, which that's the one that we had missed. So I think I've checked all the things on the bingo card, and I think I'll be ready for the spring. But I know a lot of people have had that, and I'm wondering, is it because we were masks for 2 years and my kids didn't get all the germs they might have normally gotten? I don't know, but it feels like it's been an unnecessarily rough winter season.
And it's what I find interesting is the split. If you break down Americans' take on COVID, are we back to normal, whatever, after Joe Biden begrudgingly signed saying the emergency is over, the number of it's a political thing, a majority of Democrats saying, no, we're still in an emergency, and smart conservatives have been like, yeah, we moved on with stuff a couple years ago. Why don't you all come join the pack? It's just amazing how it breaks up into political party factions. We have some more polling number stuff. A majority of Americans all of a sudden are attorneys as they believe Trump's hush money scheme was a crime and should have been charged for it. Everybody's an attorney all of a sudden.
Hey, back off.
Stephanie Ellinger Bell is an attorney, actually. Something else, polling for what it's worth. Americans overwhelmingly do not want the abortion pill ban. And I bring this up. I know it's uncomfortable for folks, but this goes in with what, for years, the majority of Americans are okay with some type of abortion. But here's what I start to wonder. All the moral arguments aside, as it relates to the pill, I wonder if this is going to be an issue that's going to hamper Republicans moving forward. I go back to the SCOTUS decision over the summer that led up to the big red wave in 2022. But now with this abortion pill, in effect, ban that's been happening, a lot of folks saying, we got to have this, including the majority of Americans and a slim majority of people that identify as Republicans. CNN, senior data reporter, talked about this, saying, well, it's polls. How accurate are the polls? What's going on? And he brought up another interesting fact.
We oftentimes look at polling and we say, okay, is this necessarily reflected in the real world? Since Roe v. Wade was overturned in the middle of last year, we had half a dozen abortion ballot measures, right? And the pro-abortion right side, and every single one of them came out with the majority, with the win. And we're not just talking about blue states like Vermont and California. We're talking about red states, right, like Kentucky and Kansas and Montana.
Kansas, one of the first ones, and that shocked people. But I think hopefully people are paying attention. Listen, if you want to win, which is more important, your stance on abortion, or do you want the Republican Party to win some races? Do you want a red wave in the next midterm? Where do you fall on that? Your morals, or who do we want to win?
Well, and look what just happened last week at the Wisconsin Supreme Court election. The left-leaning candidate there made abortion, the primary issue in that race and won.
Yeah, and that is not the way to conduct elections. I mean, Missouri should be very proud of itself. That was a nasty race on both sides. And, you have people pledging various things and everything like that. Regardless of the abortion, the abortion thing is going to be a big issue. I'm sure it will. But in outstate Missouri, I'm telling you, the churches still have a lot of power, and you look at the Missouri legislature, very Republican, by the way. Rural Missouri, they are all anti-abortion. Every single one of them.
Quickly, so we have another story we want to get here to. Quick take, Catholic Church take on abortion.
Well, there are pro-choice Catholics. There's no question about it. Without question. The Pope has... He's encouraged people to forgive and everything else, but the church teaching right now officially is they are opposed to abortion. I believe they allow it in the cases of rape, incest, which Ronald Reagan, by the way, when he was governor of California, he rape, incest, and cases like that. But that is officially the church teaching like that. But you bring up a very good point. Those red states did vote that way, as did Vermont.
All right, next. What everybody's car is going to sound like one day, like a weed eater.
Yeah, tomorrow we're expecting a new EPA regulation from the Biden administration to up the goal of EVs from 50% to 54%. Did anyone really think we were going to get to 50%? Anyway, so the polling is out. Only about 4 in 10 of U.S. adults say they are at least somewhat likely to switch to EVs.
What is it right now? It's only 6% of all vehicles sold are EVs.
So 8% of U.S. adults say they or someone in their household owns or leases an EV, and 8% say their household has a plug-in hybrid vehicle. So yeah, I mean, how are we going to get from 8 to 54?
I don't know. It seems like a lofty goal, and I thought they had just had upped some of those parameters like in 2021, and now they're doing it again. And the problem with that is the government saying, you've got to do this. We are going to subsidize you. Why don't you give it? Because in effect, you buy an electric vehicle, you're getting paid, in effect, a chunk of money.
Yeah, if you buy a ground source heat pump, they give you tax credits. How about upping the ante on the tax credits for EVs?
Why not give me a tax credit when I buy an internal combustion engine vehicle? All that stuff, incredibly frustrating. Welcome into the show. It's Wake Up Mid-Missouri, getting ready for Boone County Lincoln Days next Monday, April 17th. Hope you can join us for that. Coming up, Morning Bell business news. Little twist only Stephanie Bell can give you. What do you have for us this morning, Steph?
I think millennials and Gen Z are being accused of killing certain products and industries. Some of those are paper napkins, top
Maybe not ever.
It's been a while. And what about bars of soap? You like bars of soap?
No.
Yeah. So there's a whole long list of things that younger folks are killing. And apparently they don't buy paper napkins. They just use paper towels. I buy paper napkins still because I'm old. Top sheets or something also, which is disgusting.
What is it?
They sleep without a top sheet. Like they just put their comforter right on their body.
I only just recently switched over to the dark side of the top sheet. But all growing up, I hated them because I would just get tangled up in it, and then I'd get trapped. I'd be stuck.
So there are these whole industries that are getting annihilated by younger folks because they just decided that they don't need these things anymore. Hannah, when's the last time you bought some name brand Tupperware?
So this is
name brand? I don't think ever.
Right? You've never been to a Tupperware party?
No.
Okay.
ABC 17 does something really cool. Our news partners at ABC 17, I don't know if you saw this morning, Marsh, but they do a poll every day on their website. And I think it's kind
I did see that.
And today, and I didn't go and look at it, and I had no context, but the poll question from ABC 17 today was...
Tupperware.
Do you own Tupperware?
So they filed a report with the SEC yesterday and said, look, we might be going under. We don't think we're going to be able to meet our financial commitments. And their stock tanked 50% yesterday after they filed this SEC report. They said it's a real concern on whether they will be able to go into the future. And they have a picture of their latest line, and it looks exactly what I remember from my grandma's house of the Tupperware. And, you know, it's always been a quality product. I still have some of it in my house, but I can't say. I think the glass lobby got them, honestly, because I remember... Really?
I was going to say most of the Tupperware that I have is glass.
Is now Pyrex, is because they said don't put your stuff in glass and then you can't put it in the or don't put it in plastic and you can't put it in the microwave and the plastic's going to leach. And I think Tupperware said not our plastic, just like the water bottles that Brandon drinks out of. But anyway, they've raised serious concerns. And again, it's reflected in their stock price of whether they will actually continue in business. And they've been around for a really long time, 75 years. So you can blame Hannah and her people for that. The other thing...
Or you're welcome.
Or you're welcome. The other thing, and I'm going to blame them for this, and actually I don't think regular folks are blaming them, but why not? Fox is reporting that the demand for vacation homes falls significantly from pre-pandemic levels. And we kind of knew this was coming. A lot of people bought up the property at the Lake of the Ozarks, but I thought this was good because we do have so many vacation homes here in Missouri that if you got your eye on one, it might be your turn here coming up. But second home mortgage rate locks dropped 52% in March. But another thing that they've said younger folks have killed is they killed the starter home. And a lot of folks pre-pandemic, they didn't buy a starter home. They went out and bought a big old home because they thought they were entitled to it, which now they're bogged down by that. They can't afford a lake house because they got that big #1 house. So that's why I'm blaming it on the younger generation, not just on the COVID pandemic. But I do know, lake houses were impossible to get a hold of. The prices were crazy during COVID. And I thought, I'm just going to hang on till they all start selling off. And it sounds like might be coming.
So we ought to look at this poll on ABC 17. Do you own Tupperware? We might do that here in the next 5 minutes. Why illegal immigration matters to us, even here in Mid-Missouri. These are just some of the things that we are covering for you this morning here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri, 93.9 The Eagle, 104.5 News Radio 950 KWOF.
I think just local news is like the most important stuff to me, even though it's kind of like
Keep chippier, dips keep dippier. Tupperware freshness, that's our promise. Look at all the ways we keep it.
Come to a Tupperware party and see all the new ways you can lock in freshness.
Beans, greens, cheese, teas, potato, tomato, salami, pastrami. Jams keep jammier, hams keep hammier, cakes keep cakier, flakes keep flakier. Tupperware freshness, that's our promise. Look at all the ways we keep it.
I am so grateful we do the Morning Bell every morning, 8:25. It's business news that Stephanie gives you. A little twist, something different. And here's why. This morning, came in and yakking with John Marsh over there and producer Hannah and Stephanie Bell and Brian Houseworth. And I'm getting onto the website for our news partners, ABC17, abc17news.com. And every day, ABC17, they do a poll. It's current issues, it's local stuff that's affecting us here in mid-Missouri, and I go and check it out. And today, they just had a poll that says, you own any Tupperware? And so 3 o'clock this morning, I'm thinking, man, our buds over there at the TV station, they've just flat out, they've run out of ideas.
They're letting ChatGPT write their question.
And I'm like, huh, or maybe they're doing it like, we do Feel Good Fridays, just kind of a one-off thing. Maybe they're just like, let's just throw this into the mix and see what happens. But apparently there is a reason.
Yes.
Oh, and we have the results because that's what so now that there's context to this, I'm like, oh, okay. All of a sudden, I have this strong desire to earnestly know what my fellow mid-Missourians, I want to know whether or not they own Tupperware or not. All of a sudden, I got to know the answer to this poll question. But first, there's a reason we're doing the story this morning, and I'm assuming there's a reason ABC 17 was doing this poll.
Tupperware's been around for, I think, more than 75 years, and they issued a report to the SEC on Friday. They basically said, we're not in a great place. We're not sure we're going to be able to make all of our bank commitments and other commitments, and the outlook is pretty dire for the company itself. And its stock dropped 50% yesterday. So not good news for them.
I know Houseworth is busy doing news and stuff, but he should really be a part of this conversation as a fellow bachelor.
I bet I would put money on the fact that Brian Houseworth has some Tupperware. Also, if you don't, I just got on their website. They have more things than I thought they would. Surprisingly, a lot of their stuff's on sale today. So if you answered that question in the negative and you want to own some Tupperware, hey, they're having a sale. I have some. Do you have any?
It's not, and none I have an enormous amount of Tupperware, but here's what I find interesting is that I have not.
You stole it from other people?
Yeah, none of it. I have never
It was all mom's.
They brought something over and they said, here's like a nice meal and expected you to return it. And instead you just kept it.
Well, being a bachelor, people take pity on you.
Yeah.
They take pity on me for a lot of reasons. But you go to somebody's house, oh, here's some leftovers. Why don't you take some home? And you take it home, and next thing you know, like I've got a storage shed. I have a storage shed outside. It's like an 8x12. It's just full of Tupperware, and none of it belongs to me. It's where all my Tupperware is. But apparently fewer and fewer younger people buying Tupperware.
I will say, we have quite a bit of, glass Tupperware. We do have some Tupperware on our wedding registry, so I guess that counts as me, looking to purchase it. I don't know. Does that count?
Yeah, sure. And I guess I thought, the glass lobby, I think, got a hold of Tupperware and because they said, you shouldn't eat food out of plastic because the plastic leaches into your, food and gives you cancer or something. Anyway, Tupperware has its own, glass line of food storage, which I don't think I knew. So and there's some that's on sale, like I said.
This is kind of nasty. But the reason I like the glass Tupperware so much better is because my fiance and I both are guilty of leaving our lunch dishes from work in the car for a while. Or in our desk. And me personally, stuff gets kind of funky in my car. And so the plastic Tupperware really holds on to those smells. But the glass, you just hit it with some dish soap and some hot water and it's good as new.
Yeah. Houseworth, seriously, I want to hear your story. If you're out in the lobby, I'd love for you to take part of this.
I think, the other thing is the glass you can see. And so it's when you go over to when I go to my mom's house and it's the country crock and the Cool Whip containers that are full of the leftovers and then you can't see what's in there. And so I think traditionally Tupperware was opaque. And so you couldn't tell And there's nothing worse than being like, Cool Whip, and opening it and be like, chili. Like, what?
So, true story. One time, my grandma, I had stayed at her house for the weekend, and my grandpa had caught some spoonbill over the weekend, and there was a butter container full of fish for me to take home to my mom. And I
hope that this story is going where I think it's going.
She told me to just grab the country crock container on my way home. And I grabbed it, and I got home, and my mom was really confused as to why I brought home butter from my grandma's house. I accidentally stole her butter.
Her country crock was gone.
Yeah, it was.
Tim says, I have lots of Tupperware, but I do not cook. 874-9390. Austin has called pineapple on Tupperware Talk. Hey, it's a new feature every morning, 8:35. Tupperware Talk with Stephanie Bell and producer Hannah. Okay, so poll results, and then we will move forward. The ABC 17 poll. 82% of fellow mid-Missourians own Tupperware.
Well, and I will say the larger picture for me is, how are we evolving? And like as companies, I think that's something that like I am constantly focused on. What products is Gen Z going to kill next? And, if you're in those lines, how do you protect yourself from that? And then also, like, what opportunities is that opening it up for? Because if people aren't using Tupperware, what are they using? And how can you use that to your advantage to make some money for yourself?
874-9390. Roger is in Columbia. What's up, Roger?
Hey, Brandon, how are you doing this morning? Hey, did y'all know there used to be a distributorship for Tupperware in Columbia, and they had their own little warehouse over off of Route B, and they used to plan the parties for the people, and I think that's all gone away now.
Tupperware parties. When was the last time you heard about one of those? A Tupperware party. Roger, thank you for the trip down memory lane. 874-9390. That's interesting. Can we work in a fact check? Nope, more Tupperware phone calls. Tricia.
Yes.
What can we do for you?
Well, let's see. There is some flower beds to pull the old flowers out of. I need to spray the siding of my house with the Wet and Forget to get the little grungy mold off of it.
Mm-hmm.
And that should do me for today. So when are you coming out?
For what?
You asked what you could do for me today, and I told you.
All right. What do you need?
Well,
I wasn't listening to what you were saying. You have a whole list of stuff you need done.
Yes.
All right.
You asked.
I did. What can I do for you today?
Be careful what you say. Well, yes, I own Tupperware.
Okay.
When you go to places like Itchy, the Veranda, to the Midway Mall, there are booths that have Tupperware for sale.
Okay.
And the best, and we went through with friends, we had the Tupperware parties. And the best Tupperware party I ever went to, my friend took one of these big, almost punch bowl-sized Tupperware bowls. And to display it, they displayed it, but she filled it with an adult beverage mix, and we all partook.
Jungle juice?
No, it was kind of tropical.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what she did in there. Peach schnapps and some orange juice.
Did you get hammered?
Probably, but I was close enough I could walk home.
Tricia, and what's your address? Tricia, we appreciate you being a part of Wake Up Mid-Missouri, okay?
Okay, but Tupperware should still be out there.
Tupperware should still be a thing. Stephanie's online buying some right now.
Yeah, the other thing I didn't realize is this toy that like everybody had in the 80s. It's like half blue, half red. It's a shape sorter. It had yellow shapes that you put in the holes. That's a Tupperware thing. Do you remember this?
Tupperware made toys. You ever give a 4-year-old kid just a Tupperware bowl with a lid? They can play with that thing for hours.
This is no joke. The name brand Tupperware stuff, some of it is high dollar. Like the vintage stuff. When my grandma passed away, she had cabinets full of vintage Tupperware in shapes and sizes I'd never seen before. And you'd be surprised at how expensive some of that stuff goes for.
I was actually thinking this, like that's part of the bad part about their business model is all the Tupperware I've had, I think I got when I got married, which I've been married for 15 years. Like that stuff really lasts. I haven't bought any lately because all the stuff I bought 15 years ago, I still have. Like, if you buy that cheap stuff at the cheap big box stores that's not Tupperware brand, you're buying it again the next year because it's all broken.
All right, any more Tupperware talk? Final call.
I think one angle on the Tupperware that may have drove them out of business was buy lunch meat sometime. What's it come in? Doesn't come in a bag anymore. It comes in a little cheapo Tupperware.
Yeah. Do you reuse that, John?
We do.
Yes. Sure.
If we ever go to the in-laws for dinner and they send us home with leftovers, it's always in lunch meat containers.
There you go.
It's a real thing, Steph.
My most common Tupperware piece is something called a Ziploc baggie.
There you go.
That's my Tupperware coming up.
Do you store it in the freezer next to the flip-flops?
Right next to the shoes. Leftover. We got all kinds. Man, we've been talking.
Leftovers in our Tupperware.
We're going to open up the Tupperware containers a few minutes from now, and then it's Nolan.
Put a lid on it.
This is Wake Up Big old serving of leftovers. Enjoy.
We have a lot of good stuff we love bringing to you every morning, and then sometimes we just flat out run out of time. So Gary Nolan, who's next, he has agreed to let us hang out until 9:30 this morning because we're just going to do some leftovers. Before we get into leftovers, want to highlight this. I don't think, as it relates to our conversation with Tupperware, I don't know that I have ever heard this sentence in my entire life.
We had the Tupperware parties, the best Tupperware party I ever went to.
The best Tupperware party I ever went to. I love it. Thank you so much for being a part of the show. John, what do you got in your refrigerator? What's in your Tupperwares?
Here's a good one. City of Fulton named as one of 20 national finalists for the annual All-American City Award given out by the National Civic League, and they're on the hot list.
Man, and they do, as a matter of fact, it was recently, I think it was February or January, went to the Callaway County Chamber of Commerce event one night, and the work that people in Callaway County, what they're doing, Kingdom City and Fulton, I mean, they are really passionate about what they do. And here's what I love about them. Maybe I'm wrong. I hope not. But, like, they love what they're doing, and it's kind of like, and we want to keep it this way, whether it's politically, socioeconomic. We like what we have here. We're welcoming, things like that. We love what we have here. Please don't do anything to mess that up. Also in leftovers, got to do a fact check. We were talking about Biden. I don't know. I'm guessing by now you've heard the comments from Biden. He was being asked if he's going to run for re-election by Al Roker, and they're talking about how many more of these Easter egg events do you want to do at the White House?
Planning on after 2024.
Well, I plan on at least 3 or 4 more Easter egg rolls.
At least 3 or 4 more?
Maybe 5.
Maybe 5?
maybe 6.
So
what the hell?
Are you saying that you would be taking part in our upcoming election in 2024?
Well, I'll either roll an egg or being the guy who's pushing them out.
Come on.
Joe Biden wants to be the guy who walks around the White House lawn, push out Easter eggs. Now, I was talking.
Maybe he meant push out the votes.
Well, it's such a visual. I can see Joe Biden with and I said the chicken thing and leaning over and dropping eggs all across the White House lawn. And I called it the chicken beard thing. And somebody, Tad, says, hey, the chicken beard thing, it's called a waddle. We appreciate the fact check there. Seriously. Thanks for being a part of the show, Tad. What do you have in your Tupperware container?
Well, one other thing relating to the morning bell is we are watching inflation numbers. We're going to get an inflation report tomorrow. So things that we're watching. Another thing I'm watching is, we've talked a little bit about the Trump indictment and how, for the most part, everyone thinks it's a big nothing burger as far as the Stormy Daniels indictment goes. But folks are now starting to really watch Georgia. There's still a pending investigation going on there. And it's said that nearly 20 people have been told they were targets, not just witnesses, but targets. And so the indictment could be very wide-ranging and pretty broad. That's being conducted by a local prosecutor. And so even folks who are saying, you know what, Trump doesn't have much to worry about with respect to New York, I think folks are more nervous about what's going on in Georgia. And I think there have been signals that perhaps that's wrapping up and that we might hear something sometime in the near future. And that one could be more serious.
Whole Foods. Do you know what Whole Foods is? Is it like just health food stuff?
Yes.
Are you mansplaining a grocery store?
No, I'm asking.
Have I ever been in a Whole Foods?
Yeah.
Yes.
It's just health food stuff, right? A lot of folks in San Francisco, in one San Francisco neighborhood, they were excited. San Francisco, we're finally getting a Whole Foods in our neighborhood. 1 year later, it's closing down. Anybody want to guess why they're having to close?
Crime.
Yep. Crime. They don't prosecute crimes because they're woke. You just stole stuff that doesn't belong to you that other people are working for. Don't worry about it. Whole Foods said, well, take a couple of those. We're out.
Anybody happen to fill up their gas tank this morning?
Yikes.
Oh, man. What happened?
What happened?
It hurt.
Like yesterday, it was expensive, and then today, it's even more expensive-er.
I paid $3.39 in California this morning.
That's what it was in Ashland.
Oh, my gosh.
It was $3.09 just, a week or two ago?
Yeah. And you look at where it was 2.5 to 3 to 4 years ago. And that's